Are you sure you're eating French fries or something completely different? Every time you swing by a fast food chain and order that familiar side of fries, you probably think you're getting the simplest thing in the world. A few slices of potato, a little oil, a pinch of salt. But what's the reality? Sometimes those fries are cooked in beef fat instead of vegetable oil. Sometimes they've been part of a recall with hundreds of thousands of pounds pulled from shelves because of plastic contamination. And worse, what looks like a harmless serving of fries might actually contain ingredients that could trigger an allergic shock without any warning at all. The problem isn't just the food itself. The real issue is that we've been convinced it's just French fries, when in truth, the industry has been playing a bait-and-switch game most people never even noticed. In this video, we're going to expose 5 French fry brands you may want to stop eating right now, not because of the taste, but because of the truth behind them. Number 1. Shoestring fries, steak and shake. Do you remember the smell of fries when they were fresh out of the fryer? That smell no longer comes from vegetable oil. It now comes from 100% beef tallow. That's right, you heard correctly. Steak and Shake, a chain once known for its classic flavor, has decided to fry its potatoes in animal fat. But the story doesn't end with taste. They claim this is the traditional way, the heritage of American cuisine. And they've even tied it to a new slogan, make frying oil tallow again. Sound familiar? If it feels more like a political slogan than a description of food, you're not the only one. We're talking about a dish that millions of Americans still eat every year now, wrapped in both political and health controversy. The question is, why beef tallow? According to the company's representatives, going back to beef tallow is to recreate the authentic flavor of the 1940s. They say this is the only way to make real fries. The problem is, the 1940s were also a time when heart disease wasn't widespread. Nobody was talking about cholesterol, and saturated fat wasn't understood. Science has moved forward since then, but the way they're frying has gone backward. Plenty of nutrition experts have spoken out. They warn that beef tallow contains far more saturated fat than vegetable oils, and eating it regularly can raise the risk of high blood pressure, clogged arteries, and even stroke. So, are you sure you want to go back to those good old days? Some defenders of Steak and Shake argue at least beef tallow is more natural than industrial oil. But we have to ask, is natural always better? Not everything that's natural is healthy. You could call lard natural, but if you ate it every day, your liver wouldn't exactly thank you. The second issue, and maybe the more serious one, is how this brand is politicizing food. Using a slogan like, make frying oil tallow again, isn't just a marketing choice. It turns a neutral food into a cultural symbol. And whether you care about politics or not, that's a red flag. It makes French fries something everyone eats into a subtle statement. You might just be eating because you're hungry, but to someone else, it can look like you're endorsing something you never signed up for. So is Steak and Shake being clear with its customers? The answer is yes, but not always in a way that's easy to notice. On the menu or in ads, you have to look closely to spot the fine print. Fried in 100% beef tallow. How many customers do you think read that carefully? And how many actually understand what beef tallow means for their health? Some people will say it's just one meal, no big deal. But if you eat fast food every week or even every day, those one meals add up fast. Especially for people over 50 when the body doesn't process fat as well as before, and blood vessels are more fragile. Is that really a risk you're ready to take? Here's a simple question. If a brand is willing to turn food into a tool for controversy, what's stopping them from using the next trick? This isn't just about fries. It's about the right to eat with transparency and honesty without being steered by hidden messages. You still have the power to choose. But that choice only means something when you truly know what you're eating. And in this case, sometimes the nostalgic flavor of yesterday just isn't worth the price you'll pay today. Number 2, hash browns Lamb Weston. If you're looking for a safer choice at breakfast, you might want to stick with hard-boiled eggs or whole grain toast, because that so-called morning favorite, those crispy hash browns, is carrying a risk no one expected: plastic. You heard that right. In May 2025, Lamb Weston, one of the largest frozen potato suppliers in America, was forced to recall more than 730,000 pounds of hash brown patties. The reason: some batches may have been contaminated with hard plastic fragments during production. Not oil, not fat, not preservatives, but plastic, a material that has no business being anywhere near food. What makes this even worse isn't just the massive recall, but the silence surrounding it. No nationwide TV alerts, no warning signs in grocery aisles, and definitely no apology from the brands that put these hash browns into customers' hands. Reports suggest that the products were distributed to multiple major chains, including both restaurants and supermarkets, which means that even if you never bought Lamb Weston products directly, you may have eaten them without knowing. Picture this. A 70-year-old man sits down for breakfast at his local diner, eats his usual hash browns, and suddenly feels pain in his tooth. A small, colorless, odorless shard of plastic is lodged in his molar. If he doesn't swallow it, it's just discomfort. But if he does, then what not everyone realizes when they've swallowed a foreign object. A small piece of plastic can tear the intestines, damage the stomach, or trigger internal infections if not treated quickly. So how does such a serious mistake even happen? And more importantly, how does it slip through multiple layers of quality control and end up on our plates? This is where the question of systemic responsibility comes in. Lamb Weston is a giant supplier running on large-scale industrial processes. A few plastic fragments showing up in food isn't just a freak accident. It's evidence of a gap in oversight, or worse, a sign of negligence that's been around for years without anyone speaking up. What frustrates people most is how big companies handle these crises with silence and withdrawal. No detailed explanations, no promises to change, no one held publicly accountable. Consumers are simply left behind once again with their trust broken. And this is especially dangerous for older adults whose digestive systems are weaker, immune defenses lower, and risks higher when food safety fails. A small piece of plastic might not faze a younger person, but for a senior, it could be the beginning of a long, costly medical ordeal. You might think, well, one recall doesn't mean everything is bad. But the issue isn't a single batch. It's a way of doing business where quality control is an afterthought and accountability is treated like a luxury. And if it can happen with something as simple as a hash brown, who's to say it's not happening with other foods you eat every day? We can't stop eating altogether. But at the very least, we can avoid brands that allowed such a serious mistake to happen and then chose not to face it. Lamb Weston might continue doing business, but that doesn't mean you have to keep supporting them with your trust and your money. Because when it comes to your health, a hash brown should never contain plastic. Never. Number 3, medium fries, McDonald's. Not every change is made for the customer's benefit. Sometimes it's just a way to take more without telling you. McDonald's quietly changed the packaging for their medium fries. No big announcement, no email to customers, no clear PR campaign. They just switched. The new box looks almost identical to the one for small fries with only a slight difference in size. So subtle that most people wouldn't even notice. But here's the catch. The price is still the same as a medium. And that's how one of the biggest brands on the planet bends visual perception to maximize profit. According to some customer complaints, the medium portion is now noticeably smaller. But because the box looks so much like the small one, most people don't realize it. This is part of a growing global trend with a name shrinkflation. And McDonald's pulled it off without touching quality. All they had to do was make everything look the same as before, hoping you wouldn't notice the difference. It's not illegal, but it is a trade-off with trust. McDonald's has long been seen as a global symbol of everyday value, a place where you can walk and spend a little and get a decent meal. So when even the medium fries, the simplest item on the menu, get turned into a tool for squeezing profit, what does that say about the whole system? Think about it. This is a menu item ordered by millions every day. Students, workers, truck drivers, retirees. Nobody counts the fries in the box. Nobody weighs them by the gram. And that's exactly the kind of loophole the industry can exploit without having to answer for it. In situations like this, if you're looking for a brand that still respects portion size and value, Five Guys is often seen as a more trustworthy choice. At Five Guys, not only do you get a cup packed with fries, but they usually toss in an extra scoop straight into the bag. That isn't just a gimmick. It's a commitment to not shortchange you behind your back. Back to McDonald's. What bothers people most isn't just that the fries got smaller. It's how the change was done quietly without explanation. We're not talking about a small local diner. This is a corporation operating in more than 100 countries with a multi-billion-dollar ad budget. If they wanted to be transparent, they could. But in this case, they chose not to. The people hit hardest by this are middle-aged and older customers, folks with steady but limited incomes. For them, a simple meal at McDonald's used to be a way to save money, enjoy some convenience, and even hold on to a piece of nostalgia. Now realizing they're paying more for less, they're not just losing money. They're losing trust in something they thought would never change. Food is more than just a meal. It's a relationship between brand and customer. And once that relationship is traded away for hidden profit, the question isn't, should I keep eating here? It's, can I trust them at all? Number 4, veggie fries, Praeger's. This product was marketed as the healthy alternative to traditional French fries. From the packaging to the name, everything screamed one word: safe. But if you thought a bag of plant-based fries was harmless, Praeger's may make you think twice. In April 2025, this well-known veggie fry brand was forced to recall products in 15 states across the US. The reason wasn't spoilage, and it wasn't bacterial contamination. It was a labeling error. Specifically, the fries contained soy, one of the most common allergens in America, but it was not clearly listed on the package. This isn't about taste anymore. This is about honesty in food. When you buy something with the word veggie on it, you assume it's better, lighter, and safer. Especially for people over 50 who are trying to adjust their diets to manage blood pressure, cholesterol, or simply to make digestion easier. But when a brand uses the image of healthy to hide information that could be dangerous, it's not just a mistake. It's a betrayal of consumer trust. Some customers with soy allergies reported nausea, dizziness, and stomach pain after trying these veggie fries. One person even had to use an EpiPen to treat a mild anaphylactic reaction. Keep in mind, even a tiny trace of soy can trigger a severe allergic response in sensitive individuals. And if the label doesn't warn you, there's no way for consumers to protect themselves. So the question is, how does a brand that promotes itself as transparent, clean, and healthy make a mistake this serious? In a press release, Praeger's blamed it on packaging and labeling errors by a manufacturing partner, but is an apology enough? How many products were eaten before the error was caught, and how many people may have suffered without ever connecting it back to those veggie fries? This is the most dangerous kind of deception, not what you see and know is wrong, but what you never realized you needed to check. The food industry has become so complex, filled with technical terms, labels, and ingredient lists that are hard to read. Younger people can just Google it, but older consumers, they rely on brand trust on simple labels and on the belief that I've bought this before, it should be fine. That's why when that trust is broken, the sense of betrayal cuts twice as deep. They don't just feel tricked, they feel abandoned. You might have thought choosing plant-based was the right step, but if the manufacturer isn't honest, even the best choice can turn into a trap labeled healthy, a trap sold in major retail chains, a trap you may have already dropped into your cart without a second thought. We're not saying all veggie fries are unsafe, but after what happened with Praeger's, at the very least, you should pause and look more closely, not just at the ingredients, but at how a company responds when they get caught. In a marketplace crowded with labels like natural, healthy, and plant-based, the rarest and most valuable label is transparency. And if a brand can't guarantee that, then no matter what they call their product, you have every right to doubt it. Number 5, frozen fries from Dollar General. Convenience can sometimes be a double-edged sword, especially when it comes in the form of a frozen bag of fries for just a couple of bucks. Dollar General, the discount retailer that's spreading like wildfire across the United States, has become the go-to place for many low-income families to buy daily essentials. Among their frozen products, frozen French fries are often seen as the budget-friendly way to get a hot meal without spending much. But behind that bargain price, there are things you'll never notice just by looking at the bag. In June 2025, Arkansas State Food Safety Inspectors carried out a surprise check on several Dollar General distribution centers. The results were alarming. Multiple shipments of frozen fries were found to have exceeded safe temperature limits during storage and transport. The fries, which should have been kept below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, were actually measured between 10 degrees Fahrenheit and 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and in some cases as high as 25 degrees Fahrenheit. That means they had partially thawed at some point, then been refrozen without anyone realizing it. If you've ever worked in a kitchen, you know what that means. Once frozen food thaws improperly and then gets refrozen, the microbial structure breaks down. Bacteria grow, quality drops. And the risk of contamination, mold, or even food poisoning becomes very real. This is not just about fries losing their crispiness or flavor. It's a health issue, especially for older adults with weaker digestion or for anyone with existing health conditions. So why does this happen? The answer lies in the pressure of running an ultra-low-cost supply chain. Dollar General is racing to expand, opening hundreds of new stores every quarter, all while running on bare-bones resources. That means fewer refrigerated trucks, fewer quality control staff, and fewer chances to catch problems before they reach customers. Everything is pushed to maximum speed to save costs, but those savings don't always translate to safety for consumers. One delivery worker who asked to remain anonymous put it this way: "Some days, dozens of cases of fries sit inside containers for more than 8 hours in spring weather before they even make it into cold storage. We don't have the authority to reject the shipment if the temperature looks off. In other words, the fries you buy today may have been compromised days earlier, and you'd never know just by looking at the frosty packaging." Nobody is saying Dollar General is out to harm people, but in the race to cut costs, cold chain management. One of the most expensive and complicated parts of food distribution is often the first thing to get overlooked. And if you're buying frozen fries from the place where the products might have spent hours outside of proper refrigeration, then whether you air fry them or deep fry them doesn't really matter. The risk was baked in long before you started cooking. A lot of people shop at Dollar General not because they want to, but because they have to. Still, that doesn't mean you don't deserve food that's safe to eat. If your budget doesn't stretch to premium imported fries, at least consider stores with stricter cold chain controls. Retailers like Aldi or Costco, even at low prices, usually maintain far higher standards when it comes to storage and transportation. French fries, especially frozen ones, should be the easiest comfort food in the world. But in an age where everything is cut down to save $1, you have to ask yourself, is cheap really cheap if the price you're paying is your health and safety? Only you can answer that question. But we believe this: once you know the truth, you'll never look at that bag of fries the same way again. We're living in a time where even French fries, the simplest food you can imagine, can be a maze of trick shortcuts and hidden risks. From fries cooked in beef tallow loaded with cholesterol, to those recalled for plastic contamination, to the ones that quietly shrink in size while the price stays the same. Even the ones marketed as plant-based or healthy aren't necessarily safe. And the worst of all may be those cheap frozen bags that could have thawed in silence long before reaching your freezer.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.